If your landlord has just handed you a rent increase notice that you think is completely unfair, this video is going to change everything for you today. Because there is a legal process available to every renter in England that can stop that rent increase dead in its tracks, and most people have no idea it exists. It is completely free to use. You do not need a solicitor, you do not need to go to court, and you can win even against experienced landlords today. Tenants who challenge unfair rent increases at the First-tier Tribunal win 71% of cases and save an average of £1,140 per year. 71%. That means if you challenge your rent increase, you are more likely to win than to lose, and the tribunal costs you nothing to use. And here is the single most important thing the Renters' Rights Act 2025 changed about this process that has removed the biggest reason tenants previously avoided it entirely. Before May 2026, there was a small but real risk that the tribunal could actually set your rent higher than what your landlord proposed in their increase notice. That risk is completely and permanently gone under the Renters' Rights Act 2025, which came into full force on the 1st of May 2026 across all of England. The tribunal can now only confirm the landlord's proposed figure or set it lower than what they asked for, and it absolutely cannot set it any higher than that. This single change means that challenging your rent increase now carries zero financial risk for you whatsoever, and there is only upside when you apply today. So let me now walk you through the entire tribunal process from the moment you receive your rent increase notice all the way through to getting the decision in your favor. The process starts the moment your landlord serves you with a valid rent increase notice, and that notice must be on a specific form called Form 4A under the new law. From the 1st of May 2026, the only legally valid way for a landlord to increase your rent on a periodic tenancy in England is by using the official Form 4A. The old Form 4 that landlords used before May 2026 is now completely invalid, and any rent increase notice not on Form 4A after that date may already be challengeable. Form 4A must give you at least 2 full months written notice before the proposed new rent is due to take effect on the date stated in the notice itself. The proposed new rent must also be set to start at the beginning of a new rental period, which for monthly tenants means the first day of a calendar month. And your landlord can only serve a valid Form 4A once in any 12-month period, because the law restricts rent increases to once per year with no exceptions. If your landlord has got any of these technical requirements wrong, the notice itself may be invalid, and you can challenge the validity of the notice itself separately. To challenge the validity of the notice, rather than just the amount, you use a different form called the MR1 form, which is also submitted through the GOV UK portal. If the tribunal finds the notice invalid, the rent increase simply cannot proceed, and your landlord must start the entire process again from the very beginning now. But even if the notice is technically valid, you still have the right to challenge the amount of the proposed rent increase using the Rents 1 application form. The Rents 1 form is the official application form for tenants challenging the amount of a proposed rent increase at the First-tier Tribunal Property Chamber in England. You submit the Rents 1 form through the GOV UK portal, and the application fee is £47 for most tenants applying from the 1st of May 2026 onwards. If you are on a low income, you may qualify for a fee remission under the EX160 scheme, which could significantly reduce or completely waive the £47 fee. The most critical rule about the entire tribunal process is this: you must submit your Rents 1 application before the date the new rent is due to take effect. Not on that date, not the day after, not after a few more days of thinking about it, before that date, or you permanently lose your right to challenge that increase. The deadline is clearly stated in your Form 4A notice, and the moment that date passes without your application being submitted, the new rent takes effect automatically. So the very first thing you should do after receiving a rent increase notice is note the effective date and set a reminder to apply well before that date arrives. Here is some excellent news about what happens to your rent while you wait for the tribunal to make its decision, and this is something most renters do not know. Once you submit your Rents 1 application, the proposed new rent is completely suspended, and you continue paying your old lower rent until the tribunal makes its decision. You do not pay the new higher amount while waiting for the decision, and the new rent only applies from the date the tribunal actually determines it going forward. And because the process typically takes between 6 and 12 weeks, the longer it takes, the more money you save by continuing to pay your current lower rent throughout. The tribunal process is almost always paper-based, meaning a tribunal member reviews the written evidence submitted by both you and your landlord without anyone attending a hearing. You submit your evidence, your landlord submits their response, and an independent RICS qualified surveyor member reviews everything and makes a binding written determination. In some cases, the tribunal may decide an in-person hearing or a property inspection is necessary, but the majority of rent challenge cases are decided on documents alone. Now, let us talk about the evidence, because this is where cases are won and lost, and building a strong evidence bundle is what separates successful challengers from unsuccessful ones. The tribunal determines the open market rent for your property based on evidence of what comparable properties in your local area are actually renting for right now. Your job is to show the tribunal that similar properties nearby with similar size features and location are renting for less than what your landlord is proposing to charge you. The strongest evidence you can provide is actual rental agreements or tenancy agreements for comparable nearby properties showing the rent actually agreed in those specific tenancies. Evidence from real agreed lettings is significantly stronger than evidence from listing websites alone, because listings show asking prices, not necessarily agreed market prices. However, Rightmove and Zoopla listing evidence is accepted by the tribunal and is better than providing no comparable evidence at all, so always include it in your bundle. Search Rightmove and Zoopla right now for properties similar to yours in your immediate area and note the asking rents for any that are comparable in size and features. Look for properties that are similar in the number of bedrooms, similar in location distance from yours, and similar in condition and features to your own property today. If comparable properties are advertising at rents below what your landlord is proposing, that is evidence the proposed increase is above the open market rate for your area. Take screenshots of each comparable listing with the date clearly visible and note the address, number of bedrooms, and any relevant features mentioned in the advertisement. If you can obtain actual signed tenancy agreements for nearby comparable properties through a letting agent or through contacts, this evidence is even more powerful than listings. You should also include in your evidence bundle information about the specific features and condition of your own property that might justify a lower rent than the asking price. If your property has issues such as poor energy efficiency, outdated fixtures, ongoing repair problems, or lacks features that comparable properties have, these are relevant factors. Include photographs of any disrepair, any outstanding maintenance issues, any features that are absent or below standard compared to similar properties in your local area. Document the energy performance rating of your property, because a low EPC rating means higher running costs for the tenant, and this is relevant to the fair market rent. Note any local amenities that your property lacks compared to comparables, such as distance from transport links, schools, shops, or parking availability in your specific area. Include your original tenancy agreement showing the property description and any features listed when you first moved in as a baseline reference for the tribunal to consider. Include your full rent payment history showing that you have been a reliable tenant paying on time throughout your tenancy as background context for your application today. List any improvements you have made to the property at your own expense, because improvements by the tenant should not be reflected in a higher rent set by the tribunal. If your landlord has failed to carry out repairs, you have requested include all the correspondence about those repairs and photographs of the outstanding issues in your bundle. A landlord who has neglected maintenance will find it harder to justify a significant rent increase, and the tribunal can and does take property condition into account. Now let us talk about the negotiation step, because many successful rent challenges never even reach the tribunal, and that is not a bad outcome at all for renters. Before or after submitting your Rents 1 application, you can contact your landlord in writing explaining why you believe the proposed increase is above the local market rate. Provide them with your comparable property evidence and make a counteroffer at a rent level that you believe accurately reflects the actual open market rate for your property. Many landlords, when faced with clear comparable evidence and a formal tribunal application, will agree to a lower rent rather than go through the tribunal process themselves. Getting any agreement with your landlord in writing is essential, because a verbal agreement about rent has no legal standing and could be disputed by either party later. If you reach a written agreement, you can withdraw your tribunal application and the agreed rent applies from whatever date both parties have agreed in their written confirmation. Do not withdraw your application until you have the written agreement signed by both parties, because withdrawing before agreement means losing your protected current rent status. Now, here is something important about what happens after the tribunal makes its decision, because this affects when the new rent actually starts to apply to your tenancy. The tribunal sets the open market rent, and that new rent applies from the date the tribunal makes its determination, not from the original date on your landlord's Form 4A notice. This means that the longer the tribunal process takes, the more months you continue paying your lower current rent before the tribunal's determination eventually takes effect. There is also a protection built in by the Renters' Rights Act that the new rent determined by the tribunal cannot be backdated to before the original proposed start date. Your landlord cannot come back after the tribunal and demand arrears for the period between their original proposed start date and the date the tribunal actually made its decision. Once the tribunal has made its decision, it is legally binding on both you and your landlord, and neither party can simply ignore it or refuse to comply with the outcome. After a tribunal determination, your landlord cannot serve another Form 4A rent increase notice for at least 12 months from the date of the tribunal determination itself. Now, here's a critically important warning about something that many renters do incorrectly when they decide to challenge a rent increase, and it undermines their entire case. Do not stop paying rent while your tribunal application is pending, because withholding rent puts you at risk of rent arrears, which is a legitimate ground for Section 8 eviction. Do not pay the new higher proposed rent while your application is pending, because continuing to pay the higher amount could be interpreted as accepting the landlord's proposed increase. Keep paying exactly what you paid before the notice arrived every single month until the tribunal makes its determination and you receive written confirmation of the new amount. Set up a standing order or direct debit for your current rent amount, and do not change it until you receive the official written tribunal decision confirming the new rent level. Your landlord cannot evict you simply because you have challenged their rent increase at the tribunal, because applying to the tribunal is a completely protected legal right. Under the Renters' Rights Act, your landlord cannot use a Section 21 notice to retaliate against you for tribunal applications because Section 21 has been completely abolished now. Here is your complete step-by-step action plan for challenging an unfair rent increase and winning at the First-tier Tribunal starting from the moment the notice arrives. Step 1. Check the Form 4A notice very carefully for any technical errors such as wrong form, insufficient notice period, or incorrect effective date that would make it invalid. Step 2. If the notice has technical errors, apply using the MR1 form to challenge the validity of the notice itself before the proposed effective date passes irrecoverably. Step 3. If the notice is technically valid, but the amount is above market rate, submit your Rents 1 application through the Gov. UK portal before the effective date immediately. Step 4. Write to your landlord simultaneously providing comparable evidence and a counterproposal, because many cases settle before the tribunal ever needs to make its decision. Step 5. Build your evidence bundle with Rightmove and Zoopla comparables, property photographs, repair history, EPC rating, and your original tenancy agreement immediately. Step 6. Continue paying your exact current rent throughout the process, and do not pay the new proposed amount under any circumstances until the tribunal decides the case. Step 7. Submit your evidence bundle to the tribunal by the deadline they specify and respond promptly to any requests for additional information from the tribunal panel. The Rents 1 form is submitted online at Gov. UK, and the tribunal postal address is First-tier Tribunal Property Chamber, Residential Property Market Rents, P.O. Box 105-7, Leicester LE 1990P. Citizens Advice at citizensadvice.org. You can help you complete your Rents 1 form and build your evidence bundle completely free of charge with expert housing advisors today. Shelter England at shelter.org. UK provides specialist guidance on challenging rent increases and can help you understand whether your specific notice is valid or challengeable. The official Gov. UK guidance for applying for an open market rent determination is at Gov. UK and contains all official forms, guidance notes, and fee remission information. Remember that 71% of tenants who challenge rent increases at the tribunal win their cases and save an average of over £1,000 per year. The tribunal cannot set your rent higher than what your landlord proposed, so there is absolutely no financial risk in challenging an increase you believe is above market rate. Share this video right now with every renter you know, because most people receiving unfair rent increases have absolutely no idea this free tribunal process exists for them. Your family members, your friends, your neighbors who are renting, every one of them deserves to know they can challenge an unfair rent increase completely free of charge. If you found this video helpful, please like it right now, because it genuinely helps thousands more renters find this information before their tribunal deadline passes forever. Subscribe to UK Housing Alert and hit the notification bell so you never miss a housing law update that could save you hundreds of pounds every single month going forward. We cover housing law, rent rights, deposit protection, and landlord rules every single week in plain, simple English, so you always know exactly where you stand and what to do. Your rent is not simply what your landlord decides to charge you, it is what the open market says is fair, and the tribunal exists to make sure that principle is enforced. UK Housing Alert is here every single week, making sure every renter in England has the knowledge and the tools to protect their home and their money from unfair treatment. Many renters do not realize they can also challenge the initial rent agreed at the very start of their tenancy if they believe it was excessive when they first moved in. If you moved into a property within the last 6 months and you believe the starting rent was significantly above market rate, you can apply to the tribunal about that too. This starting rent challenge uses the same Rents 1 form and the same process, but must be submitted within 6 months of the start date of your new tenancy today. Renters in HMO shared houses can also challenge room rent increases at the tribunal using exactly the same process with the same Rents 1 form and same evidence requirements. If multiple housemates in the same HMO all receive individual rent increase notices, they can each submit individual Rents 1 applications or coordinate their challenges collectively. A landlord who serves invalid rent increase notices on multiple tenants in the same property faces the same invalidity finding applied to every tenant who challenges it properly. When gathering comparable evidence, focus on properties within half a mile of yours whenever possible because the tribunal weighs local comparables most heavily in its assessment. If your landlord attends a tribunal hearing or submits their own comparable evidence, you have the right to respond to that evidence with your own counter-evidence in writing. Always request a copy of any evidence your landlord submits to the tribunal so you can properly review it and prepare an appropriate response before the decision is made. If the tribunal makes a determination you believe contains a factual error, you can apply for written reasons and, in limited circumstances, apply for a review of the decision. The tribunal process has become significantly more accessible since May 2026, with the online Rents 1 portal making applications much simpler than the old paper-based system was. Thousands of renters across England are successfully using this process right now to fight back against landlords who are trying to impose above-market rent increases on them. You have the legal right, the free process, the strong win rate, and now the knowledge to use this system. So if your rent increase is unfair, go and challenge it today. Subscribe to UK Housing Alert today because every single week we bring you the legal knowledge that puts real power back into the hands of renters across England.